SportsBeat is brought to you by Ken Garth. We hear you.
SportsBeat is live. Sam Farnsworth and Spencer Linton. We're tag teaming with you for the next half hour, and we've got a lot of ground to cover too. Tony Finau, he's back on the golf course as the PGA Tour resumed play this weekend. We'll show you how he's doing.
One of the greatest basketball players to ever walk the earth, Dr. J, joins Thurl Bailey for Thurl Talk. How does Julius Erving size up Jazz big man Rudy Gobert? Plus, a coronavirus contingency. What happens if COVID-19 cases rise at Utah colleges and specifically in athletic facilities? It's happening in Texas. But first, our top NBA storyline as it pertains to the Jazz and a return to play in Orlando.
Yeah, that's right. If the NBA, they say they're ready to go. July 31st, the date to set to resume play with 22 teams down in Orlando. But some key members of the Players Union are saying, hey, not so fast. After a players' call last night with about 80 NBA players, including Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell, concerns were expressed about going back to play after such a long break. Kyrie Irving, he led that call, and initial reports last night stated that Donovan Mitchell was among those that spoke out about possibly sitting out the season due to social issues and COVID-19 concerns. Donovan later retweeted that post with two words, quote, "Stop it," he says. Donovan's main concern was that jumping right back into play after such a long layoff would be too high of an injury risk. Donovan, he kind of wants to play, but he and several other young players want a backup plan. Bam Adebayo, Kyle Kuzma, De'Aaron Fox, and Mitchell are 5 young players that are eligible for rookie extensions in the offseason and are on the cusp of big max contract extensions. They're urging the Players Association's executive director to talk with the league about possible insurance allowances for players. The union and NBA currently negotiating revised terms to the current CBA before they get back to play in Orlando. Now, we do have a clear timeline of what is to be expected when the NBA returns next month. July 30th through August 14th will be seeding games. Then the play-in tournament over the next 2 days. The playoffs begin August 17th. Conference semis start on the 31st of August. The conference finals beginning on September 15th, and the NBA finals will run from the 30th of September through October 13th. Now, with all of the talk about some players possibly sitting out the rest of the season, one big topic that kind of got lost in the call last night is this. No fans in 2021? Are you kidding me?
What?
Yeah, the players say they believe fans will not be allowed to attend any games for all of next season. That would be a big blow for teams with strong home court advantages, just like the team we have in Salt Lake City with the Jazz.
Sam, I'll see your NBA news and raise you a return to college football. The Division I Football Oversight Committee has passed a 6-week practice plan in pursuit of an on-time start to the 2020 college football season. The proposal now moves to the NCAA Division I Council for further approval at a meeting this upcoming Wednesday. Now, upon approval, that means BYU, Utah, and Utah State could all get back in gear, literally and figuratively speaking, as soon as July 13th. The lack of spring football for programs nationwide, coupled with a lack of facility use for most athletes over the last 3 months, has spawned this expedited and lengthier fall camp scenario. During this period, teams would be allowed 20 hours of workouts per week with a max of 4 hours per day. Of course, all of this is contingent on the COVID-19 situation remaining a low to moderate threat, which is not the case for the University of Houston. The UH Athletic Department has suspended all voluntary workouts after 6 student athletes in various sports showed symptoms and then tested positive. Houston officials opted for this out of what they call an abundance of caution. This marks the first university in the country to shut down recently opened workouts.
As you mentioned, you can't stay closed for too long if you're going to get ready for college football. You have to have this time to practice. Now, the question arises now, how does this change what BYU, Utah State are doing in their facilities? If it changes at all, are there added concerns here as we approach the fall seasons?
Yeah, if I'm Mark Harlan at the University of Utah or Tom Holmoe at BYU, I'm on the phone with Houston officials right now saying, okay, what happened? What's the deal? How can we avoid this? What kind of procedures do we need to implement so that this doesn't happen in Provo or in Salt Lake City or in Logan or in Ogden or in Cedar City for that matter? So just gathering as much information as possible to see what we can do. Yeah, become educated, knowledgeable on the matter, have a good plan of attack. I like what the NBA is doing. I understand it's a much smaller group. You're talking about an entire athletic department here, but the NBA plan of if one player tests positive, remove them from the situation, allow everyone to continue, but it is going to be difficult for college to manage that. If athletes are to a point where they show up and have to be tested on the weekly, if not the daily, don't be surprised. Yeah, no doubt. All right. Fingers crossed. College football on standby. Now, it's not every day one of the greatest basketball players in the history of the sport chats it up on the airways of KSL Sports. Former Jazzman Thurl Bailey, every Tuesday, hosts the Thurl Talk podcast. His guest just a few days ago, Dr. J, Julius Erving, on top of Jazz All-Star big man Rudy Gobert, and the transformation of the NBA style of play away from that dominant big man when the doctor played.
1964, Oscar Robertson was the most valuable player in the league. Right. And he won that award. And in 1981, I won the award. And it was the first time that the award had gone to a non-center since Oscar. Right. So there was a stretch there, 17 years or whatever that. No, 64 to 81. How much is that? It's 81. It's 17 years. The centers had dominated. Centers were the key. Centers were the, you couldn't win a championship without having a great center. Right. So things changed after 81, and then in the 80s, you had, Bird, and you had Magic, and you had, there were a couple centers in there who won, but it was non-centers in the game. And now it's, you just go back. These guards, they're running the show. Yeah, yeah. And they're like the dominant forces. The Steph Currys and LeBron. He plays all the positions, but he's not a center. And so it's really hard. The center has become a dinosaur, and unless they can move outside and they can play like Jokic and play like Embiid or whatever, then they're going to be neutralized somehow in a 7-game series if they can only play the low post. Because there's strategies for a guy who is only a low post player. I don't particularly like seeing centers shooting threes because, they're probably going to shoot 30%, from out there. I'd rather see them take a 50 or 60% shot or whatever, but it's a part of the game and spreading the floor and keeping the heat on the other team and keeping your options open.
So how does a guy like Rudy Gobert here in Salt Lake City make it work? Is it the system?
Yeah, I think they have a very good system, and he deployed interestingly enough, and Donovan being as good as he is, as young as he is, just coming in and being able to take the reins the way that he has. Joe does a great job in terms of mixing, but at the end, are they really contenders for the championship? Right.
Can you win a 7-game series with that?
Yeah, that's what you have to look at because teams constantly adjust. And if you give them more to adjust to, as you know, then it's harder for them. But if you're limited in terms of the adjustments that they have to make, they make those adjustments, like nothing. So I would think that Rudy's backup guy has to be able to spread the floor.
Gotcha.
Because this teams are going to play small, and they're going to have to, they're going to have to match that.
Yeah.
Interesting perspective. Well, after more than 90 days away, the PGA Tour returned to the golf course this weekend, the Charles Schwab Challenge. No fans in attendance. Tony Finau, who made the cut after the first 2 rounds, 8 shots behind the lead, he was among several golfers today that said playing a tournament on a course with no fans isn't quite the same, and they missed the energy from the gallery.
It's not anything different. No one watches me play anyway.
It doesn't feel too weird. It's just guys out here competing, but obviously we'd like to have the fans out here.
Hey guys, we meet you all here. Hope to see you soon and stay safe. See you here. it's been a lot different competing with no fans, but we miss you guys.
Yeah, I guess lots of patience and definitely not hearing the roars after we make a putt. And definitely I miss telling people to stop moving before we hit.
And his game...
well, there may not be fans for the rest of the season, but at least there's good golf being played. Harold Varner had the lead after 2 rounds, shot an even round of 70 today, finishing 2 shots off the lead. Jordan Spieth, the chip here for birdie on the second. It's in. He's in at 12 under for the tournament, 1 shot back. It's a 5-way tie for second, and this is who they're all chasing. Xander Schauffele. His approach on the par 4 10th, about as good as it gets. Takes a hop and a skip within an inch of the hole. He would birdie. He's in sole possession of the top of the leaderboard at 13 under par. Final round coming up tomorrow. Well, he's a basketball legend in the state of Utah. Arnie Ferrin sits down with Jeremiah Jensen coming up.
I got to start. Scored 22 points.
Yeah, Arnie recounts his time in the NBA playing with the likes of the legendary George Mikan.
And just said, man, we got here, guys. We got here. We're going to be able to hold on to this for the rest of our lives.
And the Dr. J convo with Thurl Bailey moves to a title run in Philadelphia. Stay with us.
Well, how many people do you know that was a 4-time All-American, won an NIT and NCAA title, and won a title in the NBA? That's former Utah Ute star Arnie Ferrin's basketball career in a nutshell. At age 94, he's still as sharp as ever and has a vivid memory of his experiences in some of the great moments in basketball history. Today, he recounts his time in professional basketball. He played just 3 seasons in the pros, but he was a key piece alongside a Hall of Famer in leading the Minneapolis Lakers to 2 titles.
The game of basketball has come a long way since its humble beginnings. The game is now global. The NBA is one of the richest and most powerful sports leagues in the world, featuring some of the biggest names in sport. Young players spend 1 year in college and can't wait to bolt for the millions that await them in the NBA. Well, it hasn't always been like that. When Arnie Farren was a college basketball star at the University of Utah in the 1940s, pro basketball was just getting started. He was a 4-time All-American, NCAA and NIT tournament champion. When his college career was done, he had next to no interest in pro basketball.
The average player made maybe $5,000 or $6,000 then to play in the NBA, and you could make that much money in Utah.
The NBA didn't even exist as we know it in 1948 when Arnie's college basketball career came to an end. He was drafted by the Minneapolis Lakers of the Basketball Association of America.
My wife and I prayed about it a lot, and the thought came to me that if you want to play, you want to be on a team where you can play. So I went back and said to them, where do you see me playing on your Lakers team? And I said, you're offering me money, there must be a reason. And they said, well, you're 6'4", our small forward is 6'4". You obviously can play guard, so there are 2 opportunities for you. So I looked at my wife and said, go home and move us. We're going to Minneapolis.
Arnie would join a team that featured one of the greatest players in NBA history, George Mikan. For Arnie, finding his place on the Lakers wasn't easy.
George Mikan was the dominant player at that time. And he lived in a hotel in downtown Minneapolis, and 4 of the players were his friends. All of a sudden, if I make the team, one of George's friends is going to get cut. I did not see the basketball ever. If I took it out of bounds, I throw it in, never see it again. If I took it out of bounds, nobody ever passed it to me.
But an injury gave Arnie the chance to prove himself. He took advantage of the opportunity.
I got to start. Scored 22 points. And then I started after that.
Arnie knew his role. Get the ball to George Mikan.
Coach said to me, I took a big long outside shot. He said, Arnie, he said, You probably make 110 out of that. Why don't you throw it into George? You can do better than 110.
He played 3 seasons with the Minneapolis Lakers and was a part of 2 NBA championship teams in 1949 and 1950.
The players were good players and they were good people. Wives met together and parties together, and playing with George was an experience in itself.
He walked away from pro basketball in 1951, but 70 years later, he looks back on his experience with pride, knowing he's one of the few that can call themselves an NBA champion.
It really was a dead-end job, and you played because you enjoyed the game, not because you made any money. And it turns out that, well, look in Utah, how many people have played here that haven't played on an NBA championship team? And we know this, that you're pretty darn lucky if you do.
Our thanks to Arnie Ferrin. Up next, a throwback scouting report from legendary Utah Jazz coach Frank Layden. His 1980 draft board featuring some local stars and the Golden Griff. Incredible access. SportsBeat Saturday continues after this. The KSL Sports Archive is vast and full of hidden gems. We have diligently explored it by necessity over the last 3 months, and the discoveries have not disappointed. Today's feature, a 1980s throwback with former Utah Jazz head coach Frank Layden. Layden gave the late Paul James incredible access into his 1980 draft room, highlighted by a look at his draft board and projections for the likes of the Golden Griff, Darrell Griffith, the high-flying star out of Louisville, not to mention some local products from Logan to Provo.
Out of it. Well, they got Parrish, the center from Golden State, who's a fine young player, has always had a lot of promise, and of course they attained the third pick in the draft that Golden State had, and of course they had to give something else. So we see Boston giving up the 13th pick in the draft. So Golden State now has the 1st and 13th picks.
All right. When the draft starts tomorrow morning, let's see what you anticipate will happen.
Well, our projection is that Golden State went to the first position in order to get a center of Joe Barry Carroll's quality.
So they'll definitely take Carroll.
We think they'll take Carroll. Now, we're picking, if our posture remains the same as it has, we've been saying if Boston took Joe Barry Carroll, we would take Griffith. Well, now Golden State we think will take him, so we probably will go with Griffith.
Is Griffith going to hold a gun at your head for money?
I don't think so. We talked to him and his agent Bob Wolf, and we think that we can sit down and come to an amiable agreement. We're pretty sure of that.
Can you imagine having that type of access today? Yeah, never going to happen. If some is good, more is better. As promised, love for the local guys. Bruce Collins out of Weber State, BYU big man Alan Taylor, Richard Smith of Utah State, Dean Hunger. I mean, the eye of Frank Layden had a close eye on the best Beehive State products in 1980. Here's what he had to say.
Okay, who are some of the other locals that are going to go early here? Let's see, in the second round, I see.
You got Bruce Collins, a fine player from Weber State. And,
you project he go in the second round?
He's going in high in the second round, the middle of the second round, and he's going to do a good job, I think. I like Alan Taylor. We see him going in the third round, and of course we'd have to give him a lot of thought if he slipped any further down than that. Dean Unger is a player I've liked all along. He plays very hard from state, and we see him going in the fourth round. And of course, Richard Smith, the 7-foot player from Weber State, will be right in there. And I think the thing is that after tomorrow's over, the important thing is you get drafted and then you go make the team. So just because they're picked a little bit lower doesn't mean they don't have a chance to make a squad.
Outstanding content. Well, when Julius Erving won the NBA MVP award, he heard it early, that was in 1980. It marked a change in the way the game was played, from a big man's game to a game led by the finesse and athleticism of smaller players. But even more than an MVP award, all Dr. J wanted to do when he went from the ABA to the NBA was win a title. He shared that story on this week's Thurl Talk on KSLSports.com.
Yeah, the relief.
Yeah.
The relief, and just kind of, I mean, it was sombering in terms of, you know, when I was the champion in the ABA, we were champagne was flying, and I was drinking it, and I was 3 in the morning. I didn't know where I was. But I never drank a sip of champagne. I popped a bottle and sprayed it on some people, and just hugged Bobby and hugged Clint, and just said, man, we got here, guys. We got here. We're going to be able to hold on to this for the rest of our lives. And we have.
Yeah.
And we have.
Well, before the NBA, before hockey, baseball, and football, MSL will be back in action. We'll break down their plan to return and what it means for RSL next.
Calling all Major League Soccer fans and supporters of Real Salt Lake specifically. The MLS to return July 8th in Orlando. Apparently Orlando is where they're doing everything. This time for the MLS is Back tournament. That tournament will include 6 groups of 4 teams. RSL in the same group as Sporting KC, Minnesota United, and the Colorado Rapids. Rivals for days. They will play each team once, and the top 2 teams in each group move on to the bracket for the knockout rounds, which will eventually lead to a tournament champion.
It's not just a preseason tournament. It might look like it at times just because of the long layoff and all that, but we're definitely one, and I think every coach is competitive. I think we're all going to try to and have been prepping our team to just try to play the best possible soccer they can.
What a show. Thanks for joining us. We'll have more on SportsBeat tomorrow.